Yeah, I'm gonna say it. These guys might actually have themselves some really interesting opportunities over the next few days, depending on what happens, depending on how their respective teams use them, and of course, depending on how they themselves perform. Today, what I wanted to do was talk about some PTOs that actually could be secret winners for the teams that they are on. Of course, because I'm a Canucks fan and a Red Wings fan, I wanted to talk about two of these names, because one of these PTOs actually did go completely under the radar, as it was announced, I think it was yesterday. The other one we did actually make a video about, but there were some comments from a former NHLer that went out there and described his chances of doing some damage. So, let's talk about the guy that's actually newer. Let's talk about the Detroit Red Wings, because earlier 2 days ago, the Wings posted their official training camp roster. And included is a very particular forward that I wanted to talk about in today's video. You'll see him as number 79 on the forwards list. It is none other than Alex Chiasson, who is listed on this list as a camp invitee. Alex Chiasson, ladies and gentlemen, is back in Detroit, and honestly, I had to do a double take. I was like, wait a minute, Chiasson is back with the Detroit Red Wings? That guy didn't play last year in 2023-2024. The season he had most previous in the NHL was in 2023. In fact, his last full NHL season was accomplished in 2021-2022 with my Vancouver Canucks, wherein he scored 22 points and 13 goals. Chiasson has been out of it for a while. And I'm not going to go out there and say that I know the guy personally. I'm not going to say that, oh, he took a year off, he didn't train, he didn't do any skating, he didn't do whatever. Because honestly, when it comes to NHL athletes, you know, a lot of these guys, they love hockey. They're not going to completely step away from the game, even if they take a step back and take a year off. Alex Chiasson was a free agent for a year now, a full-on year, and now he's back in an NHL training camp participating with the Detroit Red Wings. This is a guy whom I'm not going to say is guaranteed to bouncing back to what he was able to do with the Oilers in 2018-19, but he is a guy that I think can be useful. And if you needed the refresher, he was a 20-goal player with Edmonton with 38 points in 73 games played that season. Why did he get 22 goals that year? Well, it's because he was playing with Connor McDavid. But other than that, yeah, I mean, that's a pretty easy explanation, right? Put him alongside the best player in the world, and he can find the back of the net. Honestly, I feel like Alex Chiasson was the Zach Hyman before Zach Hyman for Connor McDavid and the Oilers. Everything that Zach Hyman does and allows him to produce goals like nobody's business, Alex Chiasson, I think, kind of does too, just not to the same magnitude of success. Zach Hyman's a 50-goal scorer, so I'm not going to say that Chiasson's the same caliber of player, but he is the same kind of player. Net front presence, can drive to front of the goal, you set him up in front and he'll put the puck in the back of the net most of the time. Not really the fastest guy I found, Alex Chiasson, but certainly a guy with some hockey sense and some IQ in front of the net. It's why, in Vancouver, he had scored 13 goals as well. He was the net front presence on the power play for a good chunk of the year, which was bizarre to think about when you look at that Canucks team in retrospect. But Alex Chiasson was an important player in that season's worth of play. He had more points than Nils Höglander. And so now, in Detroit, he was a pretty good player in the AHL's Grand Rapids Griffin system, and he did have some points at the NHL level with the regular Red Wings. So seeing Chiasson force himself back into the training camp roster in Detroit, I'm not saying it's guaranteed he gets a spot, but if he does get a spot, then I think that's honestly a pretty good addition here. Not that he could completely outduel and win over a roster opportunity over a guy like, I don't know, Joe Veleno or something, just kind of tossing a name out there. It's going to be difficult for Alex Chiasson, of all people, after a year of not playing any hockey professionally, to overtake some of the guys that did play the full season last year. Although I do kind of think, it'd be crazy to have that Vancouver connection in the bottom of the Red Wings lineup. Like, if everything goes well, you put Sheldon Dries, Tyler Mott, and Alex Chiasson on a line, and all the Canucks fans watching this video were just like, oh, Legos, shut up, man. Like, just kind of taking all the other pieces from Vancouver Canucks lore floor and shoving them in here to the Detroit Red Wings because they're all going to be a part of the same team. It's kind of funny to see how that works, but if Alex Chiasson is able to really establish himself as a net front guy in these practice drills, he gets a few preseason games here and there, if he's able to show off well, then hey, maybe the Red Wings might have no choice. We have seen them try different guys in the power play bumper throughout the past few years. Alex Chiasson, I think, is one of the better ones if you would ask my opinion. Now, when it comes to the Vancouver Canucks, shifting gears here to my top team, I wanted to go out there and talk about some comments made on forward Sammy Blais, because an article from 5 days ago by Cooper Godin goes over what a former NHLer said about the Canucks and this player. Take a look at this. It's former NHLer Landon Ferraro, who had a recent interview with Jeff Patterson of Canucks Army, who had talked about how he believes Sammy Blais could make the Vancouver Canucks roster out of training camp. I played with him in Chicago and St. Louis's system in his rookie year, so I got to know that younger group because there were a lot of them. Ferraro said, he's a guy who's had some knee issues and is trying to battle back from that. When he's on his game, he's a big, heavy forward that can make some plays. It's just, does he have his pace back? If he has his pace, he's going to make a run at the spot in Vancouver, I think. I've seen him from his first year on. The game is there, but as a fellow guy that's had a lot of injuries, it's taxing on you, and it's just whether you can get your body to cooperate or not. And so, when you think about Sammy Blais as a Vancouver Canucks acquisition, we had already talked about this in the video going over how he had signed, but Sammy Blais is a player who's most infamously known as being a part of the St. Louis Blues trade return package in the Pavel Buchnevich trade. Infamously, at that. He only had 15 points in 36 games played the season he was sent away to New York for Pavel Buchnevich, who, by the way, is like a 70-point caliber guy nowadays. But eventually, Sammy Blais faded away with the New York Rangers. He ended up back in the St. Louis Blues system, and it's great for him because he had 20 points in 31 games played in 2022-2023 with the Blues. Totally not the standard that we should be expecting out of this player, considering that miracle run was followed up by a 7-point campaign in 53 games played the next year. Not to say that Sammy Blais is ever going to be anything more than that, but this guy is a lot more of a physical player. He's a lot more of a brute. He can skate hard and hit hard. That is, if he's not injured. So if Sammy Blais is one of these guys that's able to fully get his feet under him and continue to move when he is at his best, then there might actually be an underrated chance for a guy like Blais to make the Vancouver Canucks. If he does, and he rounds himself out as a winger in the bottom six, let's just say there's a fourth line in Vancouver of, I don't know, Kiefer Sherwood, Sammy Blais, and maybe a Danton Heinen or something, or a Pius Suter or whatever. Or heck, if you wanted to put all of your agitative forces on one line, there isn't a center, but if you wanted to put Sherwood, Blais, and Hoglander all together, that'd be a crazy nightmare kind of line to play against. Maybe they don't score too many goals, maybe don't get too many points, but they will definitely make the opponent's lives a lot more difficult. So for Sammy Blais, a player that I honestly think is due, if he, of course, has the injury recoveries to allow him to do that, he's due to pushing himself and bringing himself back up to stardom, because ever since he was traded for Pavel Buchnevich all those years ago, I think Sammy Blais' reputation never was the same. A lot of people kind of talk trash about him because he was traded for such a prominent name in Buchnevich. And it was just a few years later that he'd be on the same team as Buchnevich when he was sent back over to St. Louis. So obviously things have been weird for Sammy Blais the past few years. Injuries definitely played a part in that. But assuming he's healthy, Landon Ferraro, of all people, is saying, yeah, I think he could crack the Vancouver Canucks roster. As we had talked about yesterday in the video about Jonathan Lekkerimäki, I kind of feel like it's a bit better if they don't crack the team, because there are already so many names on the Vancouver Canucks forward core that if a guy like Sammy Blais is good enough to overtake any of them, all of a sudden you have extra guys that might not be able to play even though they were promised playing time. You might have to be forced into a trade. Who really knows what happens then? It's just a lot of uncertainty, deviating away from the forward core that we're expecting Vancouver to have heading into the 24-25 season. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below if you're a Red Wings or a Canucks fan. How do you feel about Alex Chiasson as a potential option and Sammy Blais? Do you think these guys can make their NHL teams at the start of the year? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. and bye.